denomination. I want to see you do that. We have to teach Americans what this is.
We do.
And I don't know if we're doing that yet. Okay. I don't think most Americans realize they're already socialists.
In certain respects, okay. Let's start off with what it is not what we want to change. We want to deal with the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in America. Very few people think it is acceptable or moral that the top 0.1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. That we have seen a proliferate.
But see, Bernie, you always say that, and I think even the Republicans are not for income inequality. They hear that, but it doesn't compute that that's going to be solved by socialism. Socialism is the programs they already like. They like Social Security. That's socialism. They like Medicare. They like the VA. They like the military.
That's exactly right.
It's already a socialist country.
What we have to, no, it's not a socialist country.
It's quasi.
There are some socialist programs. But what we have got to do is remind fellow Americans that every other major country on earth guarantees health care to all people as a right, and they do it more cost-effectively than we do. We have got to inform the American people that we are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave. We have got to remind the American people that there's something a little bit crazy when in America we have more people in jail, disproportionately people of color, than any other major country on earth.
All right. But I don't know if we're still undemonizing this word socialism. This is my big thing tonight, to get you to undemonize this word, because they do polls on who people would vote for. Like, would people vote for a woman, a Jew, a black? Those are in like the low 90s, like 92, 91% of the people. And of course, the other 8%, I think we know who those people are. You won't be getting their vote. Then like 75% of Americans would now vote for a gay person. That's a big change from 10 years ago. Yep. 60% would vote for a Muslim. 58% would vote for an atheist. Socialist, 47. It's at the very bottom of the ballot. They hear socialist, they think herpes, Bernie. We have to get this.
But then what we do is we have to make movement, if you like, to correlate what we're talking about. Because on every one of the major issues I am talking about, the American people agree. Do the American people agree that public colleges and universities should be tuition free, as they are in many other countries?
Right.
Do the American people believe that the largest corporations and the wealthiest people, they are doing phenomenally well, while the middle class shrinks? Do people believe they should be asked to pay more in taxes? The American people say yes.
Okay. But, now this has been studied. The amount of tax revenue that we would get just from taxing the people who, I think your fans think you're talking about, the people who own a yacht, does not come close to covering what you want to pay for.
Not true.
Come on. You're saying by only taxing the top?
No, what I'm saying is there have been articles out there that have been really unfair and wrong. For example, what they are suggesting, if we move toward a Medicare for all single-payer program, which guarantees health care to all people, it would cost a lot of money. That's true. But what they forget to tell you is it would be much more cost-effective than the dysfunctional system we have right now, which is the most expensive per capita on Earth.
But it couldn't even work in your home state of Vermont. They were going to institute it, and the governor said, it's going to cost too much money. We just can't do it. It would be the entire budget.
No.
That's true.
Well, I'm not the governor of the state of Vermont. I'm the senator from the state of Vermont.
But the point here is,
then the question is, though, you tell me, why is it that every other major country on earth,
I will tell you why. Because they control both ends of it. If you're saying that the government is going to pick up the tab, but not make the insurance companies, the hospitals, and the doctors not gouge people, then we are going to break the budget. It has to work both ways.
Exactly.
Okay, so then
here's an example.
So you're going to make the hospitals do that? The
United States is the only major country on earth that allows private insurance companies to make huge profits in the healthcare system.
Right.
The function of healthcare should be to provide quality care to all people, not to make huge profits for the drug companies and insurance companies. So here is my point. Here is my point. We are spending more per capita on healthcare than any other major country on earth. Our healthcare outcomes are not particularly good, and I believe that healthcare should be a right of all people.
Okay, but you want to increase Social Security.
Yes, and you know how we do that? We pay for it.
Right.
We say that somebody who's making $10 million should not end up paying the same amount as somebody making $118,000. Lift
Right.
the cap.
Okay.
We can extend and expand Social Security.
Okay, you also want free college.
That's right. Well, not one. We do not free college. Free public college.
Right.
Free tuition in public colleges and universities. You know how we pay for that? Through a tax on Wall Street speculation.
Okay. Child care.
Yep.
Child care.
Yes.
And single payer.
Now, single payer is more cost effective than what we have right now.
Okay.
In terms of child care, in terms of rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure and creating millions of decent paying jobs, we do away with these huge tax loopholes that corporations of the world
So you're saying we can pay for all this without raising taxes on anybody but the 1%?
They have to go down a little bit lower than that, but not much lower.
But that's... Summit President Obama this week he invited a lot of Muslim groups to the White House to say terrorism has nothing to do with it. There's also this article this week in The Atlantic that got a lot of play. It's called What ISIS Really Wants, by a guy named Dan Wood. And I want to show the quote. I keep quoting Obama and keep quoting him.
Producer on the track. Producer on the track.
Confronted as well. He also struggled with how to define this sort of terrorism. At first, he began with the rhetoric of the Crusades, and he kind of backed off of that because it played into the whole clash of civilizations. And he eventually settled on referring to Islamic radicalism, but he always said as well that Islam was the religion of peace. They both kind of said that.
Well, if you say everybody is Islamic,
It's mixed.
no one is saying I don't think so. By the way, this is what we got recommended convenience, right? I don't know that at this point, but we need to bring the world together.
Well, he already answered that. He has kind of answered that already because he wrote a speech this week. And he said that ISIS fighters, I think the figure he had was 200,000.
Yeah, he was off by 180,000.
He's off by
And then he
180,000.
corrected later saying
Lives on the beat.
in Berkeley where people can't give a speech. I mean, that's the whole essence of the American system.
It's
People can
ridiculous.
give a
I'm sorry,
speech.
General.
Not everybody has to
The
agree.
Muslim community
Everybody
in
says.
this country, you are treating them like fifth class, and they are not. And guess what? And guess what? If these people are the Muslim community feel threatened and feel offended, and they are underrepresented in the media and underrepresented in political. You need to invite them here on these issues.
Never invite them here. You're here.
These issues.
Reza here is here. They're here all the time.
On these issues.
What do you mean on these issues?
I mean,
I'm the one who says I want to stop talking about this. I can't because things happen in the news.
Reza was invited to talk about something else. It was August 1st.
Well, Reza.
Said that they were very conservative.
But people don't know what those terms mean.
Well,
Liberals don't know what liberal means either.
well, the fact, so actually what's really interesting is conservative among Republicans has never been like a bad word. In fact, now you have to call yourself conservative. So it's not like, on the Democratic side, you have a lot of folks that are probably liberal, but they just call themselves moderate because it's been kind of demonized as a term.
Progressive.
Now it's progressive. So on the right, that's not the case. Conservative is the label we love. And so the fact that you have only about a third in South Carolina in a Republican primary that's very conservative, I think is really notable. And I think it means that you don't have to be a fire breather
You're a
to
pollster.
win this primary. Yes.
Okay, I read recently that pollsters are having a very hard time. Because it's not like the old days when everyone had a landline. And People just don't answer the cell phone. And when you have a cell phone, of course, you can see who's calling. When it says pollster, they don't answer.
Everybody, please pick up if a pollster calls you and take our survey.
They cited the British election, they got way off.
Yep.
The Israeli election, they got way off. And we may be entering an age where we really don't know what people think until they go to the
And it's about to get even tougher.
Is that a good thing?
Well, the FCC actually has just handed down a new rule. The text isn't out yet, but it will make it illegal to use automatic dialing technology to call even landlines. But even all those robocalls are going to be gone. So a lot of the polling that we have now, so lots of people really like this. Well, but I have started to like online polling, which isn't perfect, but it's getting much better. That's going to be the thing that takes over. So I'm not weeping too much for the death of the robo-poll, but I think we've got to figure out how to do these things.
Mary Catherine, are both political parties guilty of coercion free speech? Here's the place I've been. I mean, my closing thing last week was, and I said this before about the liberals, that they shut down free speech, too much political correctness. I would say they're the guiltier party.
Yeah, but perhaps I will surprise you by saying yes, both sides are guilty. I think the argument we make in the book and the discussion is that this kind of stuff is sort of born on campus, no right-wing organization, and sort of proliferated through the media and weaponized in Washington. It's gotten to a point where it's like we can't just even see things that are offensive to us and deal with them as adults. I think the Confederate flag issue is interesting because I think it's right and smart to take it down from government-endorsed areas, but I do think the impulse to eradicate this symbol from American life in every way, shape, or form, which is still like what's going on, is an odd impulse.
I agree. People should have the right to have a Confederate flag in their house. That's so un-American.
Because
You have the right to be an asshole.
Right. Apple got in trouble. Well, they got a little blowback because they took all games out of the iPhone App Store if it had a Confederate flag in it at all. So a bunch of these educational games about the Civil War were removed. Now, they say they're putting the educational ones back, but I mean that's how far it got. That if your game at all had a Confederate flag in it, they took it out.
I think it'll wash out. I think that the point is, of course, before 2 weeks ago, or whenever this, a week ago, when this argument got hot, it was politically incorrect, so to speak, to even engage the flag issue and to challenge somebody. The president stood today in a eulogy and said that we were on the side of what was wrong with the slavery. I mean, that's one of the few times that we've heard a high-ranking politician of that ilk tell the truth about what he felt, and people have to at least agree with it on all sides. I mean, I think that's progress.
Okay, should Dzhokhar Tsarnaev have been allowed to apologize at his sentencing hearing? You know what? Let me ask you another question about that. Not that that's not a good one. But he got the death penalty, but he may wind up in solitary for his whole life. I think solitary is just way worse. I would much rather ISIS, cut my head off. It's a bad 10 minutes. And then...
Pretty bad.
As a terrible person decapitating you, it takes 10 minutes. Well, but they have you seen those videos?
No, I didn't watch those videos.
Me neither, but I haven't. But it's a slow. It's not like in the movies. But I'm saying, as opposed to 60 years, they say that people expect when they go to the solitary confinement area of the prison to be quiet. It's actually people wailing because they're driving them slowly out of there. So that's not a violation of cruel and unusual punishment. I don't know what it is. I'm someone who says if you actually know someone did it, it's okay to go. And this is a case where we actually know. We did it.
A couple of things I'll say. One is that sometimes it can be because the general population without inmates or even that is population. But it should be used sparingly. And the thing that really bothers me is
Yes, he wound up taking whatever it was. This guy shouldn't be in solitary. This is for Hannibal Lecter, not Jesse Jackson Jr. Well, there's some people have been in jail for ridiculous things. I mean, there's due to mandatory sentencing. I mean, in states where pot is legal, people are in jail and selling pot. That's a terrible thing. There's a great documentary about that called The House I Live In. And that is something that the president has acted on. So giving people time to say people in jail for a really long time for things like and that kind of I don't get that. You know, as he goes down the list, gay marriage, Cuba, immigration, all the things that the secretary said he's fearless. I'm hoping last thing before he goes out the door. Sweet bitches. See ya. What my little bed. This is what I think a lot of brothers and sisters.
Sweet bitches.
Ambition weed is even better. Judd, which was your favorite to conduct for yourself? That's all the my favorite? Howard Ramis. Yes. And no one who's alive can complain. Well, of course. Who said the dead guy? I'm not dead. I mean, he was a great guy and a real influence. He was also you know, life is kind of ridiculous. A bad person, and I choose a good person. I don't like he was a godfather. He was the Judd Apatow of his era. Yeah, I mean, he was involved in everything. Yeah, that's right. Ghostbusters, now like they animal know. Right. I was Jerry Seinfeld when I was 15 years old. I called this manager that I was from a radio station. So I showed up at his apartment with a giant boombox. And then he did a straight interview with me. And then I interviewed him again last. So I interviewed him.
But he can't tell you
hold on.
until he's president.
Actually, I have a quote.
Nixon said the same thing. Whatever Trump says, I'm telling you, you're right. Other Republicans have said it. It's just their greatest hits.
I don't mean to be flippant about it, but the literal Trump quote from Bill O'Reilly in his interview is, "No one is bigger or better at the military than I am."
He's bigger and better at everything, I'm telling you. He also said, nobody builds walls like I do. Between him and so he makes an announcement, calls Mexicans rapists. Any other politician, the next day, you're totally wrong. I just spoke, I was doing blah, 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 here with Latino. Trump is like, fuck that. I doubles down. Univision cancels his beauty pageant, so now he has a giant feud with Univision. Never bends. Never changes stars. It's like the
Every time you think this point, I think of Trump in a hot tub. You're welcome.
Michael Eric said, what did you make of Obama's use of the N-word on Mark's broadcast?
Well, I think it was great. I mean, he's the only president who used it as scare quotes as opposed to using it seriously against black people. So, I mean, LBJ, Nixon, and a whole bunch of other presidents. But look, what's amazing, there's a civil war going on, speaking of Bill Cosby, there's a civil war going on in Black America, and part of it has to do with, can you use N-word, if you use N-word, you use it in rap music, therefore you've made it horrible for everybody else, because predictably, our guy, Brother Ted, is it Nugent? Said that, I can use it now, and I'm going to use it, and he started using it immediately. I think that's a horrible consequence for everybody else.
That doesn't sound like it said good tonight. You know what? Here's something crazy. My grandfather discovered Ted Nugent. Discovered? What was he produced Ted Nugent in the Amboy Dude? Ted Nugent is the Donald Trump of rock and roll. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, Fana. We got to go. We'll see you back. Did the Saudi king slight Obama by not coming to Camp David this week? That's right. The Saudi king was supposed to show up at his Gulf Council place, and he snubbed us. I say let's break up with Saudi Arabia altogether. Why can't we do that?
I agree with that. That's actually my biggest fear about another Jeb Bush in the White House is that one of those pictures is a Bush holding the Saudi prince's hand and just knowing that we're marching straight up.
All presidents have held their hands.
But you know what's happening right now?
It is time.
Snub those thugs.
I remember articles in the 70s when I was in school about how they get the oil pump as a hypodermic needle that were hooked on the oil. Remember Jimmy Carter? We have energy independence.
Oh, no, but that would require regulation and the government spending on infrastructure, and we can't have that.
Energy carbon tax. That would be the best thing.
Right, we can really have that.
But why don't we tax bad shit that hurts us, like oil, instead of good things that, like work? Is that crazy? Is that a crazy idea? Heather, which candidate for president will have the most aggressive anti-party poverty agenda?
That's a very good question. So I think that Secretary Clinton actually gets a bum rap on issues like this. I don't think that she is necessarily the most progressive when it comes to challenging corporate health, but I think when it comes to, her first job was at the Children's Defense Fund, right? When it comes to these issues of poverty and kitchen table economic issues, I think she's got a crusader card.
I don't know about Crusaders part, but yes, I agree. I don't worry about her domestic issues. I worry about her being too foreign. That's where I was that she's long, and I would smattering of cutting green claws. Yes. Ayan, what is the status of campus debate on Islamism? Yes, you were disinvited. You were supposed to speak at Brandeis. Right?
I was supposed to speak at Brandeis. And
I was disinvited this year, too. Look at that. We have that in common.
Disinvited.
You were disinvited, Charles. Yeah.
No, we've all been disinvited.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
In fact,
Mike, have you been disinvited?
From America as a black guy. Vote came, picked us up, worked for a few hundred years there. All
right, you always have to top this.
I'm the opposite. I just got asked to be a commencement speaker. There's hope for anybody.
You are so funny because you started out as the person that nobody wanted to be.
I got thrown out every school I ever went to.
You're like Bill Clinton. In the 90s, he was the awful guy who killed Vince Foster and had a blowjob. And then as time goes by, he's like the old building of the old whore. He's respectable now.
I know. I'm totally right. Nobody ever gets mad at anything I say.
You stick around long enough and you're respected.
You become an insider instead of an outsider.
Right. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I think that we should be worried about what's going on in campuses, and not all campuses, but students need to go to college to learn how to think, not what to think. If we don't give them a chance.
Great way to say it.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you go to Brent? Did you ever get there, or did that stick? Because I shamed them into actually rescinding the ban and actually letting it.
I think Brandeis has been it's a campus culture. It's this whole thing about protecting minorities against what? Against learning how to think, minority students? Don't you trust minority students with...
It's so, it's so patriarchal. It's so patronizing.
It's patronizing, and I'm more worried about that really than about... and I'm also worried about radical Islam on campuses, but I think if students learn how to think, they'll see for themselves the difference between the ideology of Sharia versus the ideology of liberalism. And they need to be able to differentiate that when they graduate. They need to have that.
What would you know about it?
What would I know? What would I know?
All right. Well, who is right about the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, Obama or Elizabeth Warren? Yes, the liberal fight between themselves got a little nasty this week. Obama said Elizabeth Warren is just another politician, and he called her Elizabeth. And then Sherrod Brown, the Democratic senator from Ohio, was like, hey, Obama, that's patronizing to use her first name. And Obama was like, hey, I'm not on the rag, you are. I made that last part up. They didn't say that, but it did get elected.
Paraphrase. Does anybody understand this treaty?
No.
I'm in favor of free trade, but I'm about to figure it out when I read the newspaper. What's in the thing?
No, so you do read it.
No, I stopped after the first paragraph. I said, this is not for me.
It is very arcane. It is a little hard to get into.
But I haven't, there are a few things that almost all economists I know of, and the left and the right agree, is free trade is a win trade.
There's no such thing as free trade. Like, that's just a slogan. It's like saying the death tax or something like that.
Clean coal.
Right, exactly. Clean coal.
Trade is a win-win.
Right. Trade is great. We're trading all the time. We're trading barbs, you and I. It's great. It's just what matters is the rules and how you write them, and frankly, who gets to write the rules. And the problem has always been with our version of free trade that corporations and their lobbyists get to write the rules, and it's cost American jobs every single time. And it's not made life better in the manufacturing countries where they're, dying in sweatshops.
So why do you think Obama's so for it?
So I actually think that there is a piece about this, about China, that is geopolitical, that is not about, jobs and economics at home, but this is actually about showing our biggest competitor that we have relationships with these nations in its area. That's a big piece of it that I don't think he can sort of say and lead with, but I think that is a major piece of it.
Maybe he had to make this bargain to get the climate deal to China. Presidents do things behind closed doors we don't know. And sometimes we're glad they do. Anyway, okay.
Well, I was just saying, trade needs something else in my world.
Right. So does water. For John, how do you explain our obsession with celebrity?
Oh God, I don't know. When I hitchhiked across the country and everybody picked me up, no one asked about that. No one said to me, even if they knew who I were or anything. It was so amazing. Nobody wanted to talk about celebrity. That's so, the people have a whole different set of questions from the media. The media always asks me about the guests on the show. People I run into ask me about the issues. Or they talk about their lives. Right. Which I was much more interested in hitchhiking. I didn't like doing an interview in every car. Right. I wanted to hear what they had to say. Right. So it was amazing to me, even if they knew. Nobody said what's Johnny Depp like. They which in real life, in New York or LA, they do. Everybody asks me, what's Actually, people ask me what Bill Maher's like,
What do you say?
I say, basically, I tell them the same thing that we said to each other after the first show.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were an asshole.
I thought you were an asshole. You aren't as much of an asshole as I thought you were. And you said to me, and you aren't as much of an asshole as I thought. It was just love at first sight.
Yeah, isn't that a couple of charmers? Does George Stephanopoulos' donation to the Clinton Foundation compromise his journalistic integrity? I don't know if you heard the story. George Stephanopoulos gave $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation, and he had to apologize I think this is preposterous.
We gave $1 million to Obama.
I know, but George Stephanopoulos was the guy in the war room with Clinton in '92. We knew from the get-go where his politics were. So he gives to Clinton's charity so that they fight AIDS and malaria in the third world? What? I don't get it.
I cannot get excited about this.
I can't either. It's ridiculous. It'd be one thing if we didn't know where George Stephanopoulos stood. But we knew, and we somehow were okay with the fact that he's now an impartial newsman. But but this guy, more than most, we have to admit, we know, is in the tank.
Yeah, no, and they got his start in his career.
Mike, what do you say to people who link crime and violence to rap music?
After I say you're stupid. Rap music, hip-hop, as a entity, was started in the late 60s, early 70s. A bunch of kids were in the burnt-out letter called the South. Yeah, I'm about to give it to you. So, please, game. Check this out. I know you didn't have like Jay and
I thought it was a little later than
No, I got you. Check me out. There's going to be a movie comes out called Rubble King. So in the late 60s, all these kids that were kind of the fallout kids of the Black nationalist movement, civil rights, poor white people's movement, and Puerto Rican nationalism movement, they had street gangs in New York and the Bronx that were specifically burnt down. At some point, very late 60s, early 70s, these kids were like, we're going to come up with our own peace treaty. Came up with their own peace treaty. Decided that we aren't going to engage in violence. Well, what's the alternative to violence? The Zulu Nation was born out of that. Africa Bambaataa, Cool Herc. Look, Google these. I'm telling you, it's way bigger than many of the rappers you think now. The story is way more interesting. These kids, they were children, got together in the park, stole public electricity, which I strongly support, and decided to do park jams as an alternative to violence. So hip-hop is not rap. Hip-hop is the thing that houses rap, graffiti, breakdancing, and DJing and entrepreneurship. And what it did was give poor kids the opportunity to organize as an alternative to violence. Now, fast forward 40 years, it worked. A lot of money came into it. Guys bought big chains and tigers and lions and bears and shit. And we got off course. But at our core, hip-hop, every time you see a successful rapper, you're seeing a job creator in the community. Jay-Z has provided hundreds of jobs and created dozens of millionaires and has changed the economy in places that it wouldn't have been. Outcast in Atlanta personally changed the economy in the last 20 years. So I would say that people who say hip-hop is violent, I would say let's start with the real violence starters. Let's start with the three major Abrahamic religions and let's do away with their books. Let's start with governments and geo-war politics. Let's do away with our leaders. So after we get down the violent scale of all the things that create real violence, to get to music, it'll be easy to get hip-hop. Because people in hip-hop want to do the same thing you do. Talk shit about politics, smoke weed, and date dope black women. That's it.
But Mike, wasn't Rapper's Delight in 1979
well, that's the first
rap?
I thought it was Carla Thomas and Otis.
Yeah, 79 was Rapper's Delight. The hip-hop's birthday is November the 12th, 72 or 73. It's her birthday. It's older than me. I remember the birthday was my daughter's birthday. Hey, I'm nice. But it started way before then. It just broke. People figured out how to sell it.
Right.
The kids started it as an alternative to violence. That's what disturbed me about Baltimore. When I was on...
Throw your hands in the air.
Like
we get back to that.
They said it, but they said in Baltimore, Crips and Bloods had united with the BGF and Phil Collins. But on my timeline, on my social media, I saw gang members saying, we're going to be about peace. We aren't warring with each other anymore. They didn't say anything about killing cops. They said like it was the first time in my young life that I saw gang members say, since 1992, say we're going to invoke our own peace treaty. And what government should have done is what we do when we go to a foreign land, get all the people who were rebels and then sit them down together and say, let's do some truth and reconciliation. Let's fix this thing from the ground up. And I think we need to start engaging hip-hop and young people in that way. And I think things will change. We'll see systemic change.
You get the last word, Killer.
I love you, brother.
And Killer Mike is because you killed a Mike.
Because I killed
Not
Mike.
because you killed.
Now I'm killing nobody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panel. You're on overtime. time, did the Saudi king slight Obama by not coming to Camp David this week? That's right. The Saudi king is supposed to show up at his Gulf Council conclave, and he snubbed us. I say good. I say let's break up with Saudi Arabia altogether. Why can't we do that?
I agree with that. That's actually my biggest fear about another Jeb Bush in the White House, is that one of those pictures of a Bush just holding the Saudi prince's hand and just knowing that we are just marching straight into something.
All presidents have held their hand, whether they held their hand.
But you know what's happening right now? Time for it.
It is time.
Snub those sons.
I remember articles in the 70s when I was in college about how we have to get off the oil. With the cartoon with the oil pump as a hypodermic needle that we're hooked on the oil. And the Jimmy Carter with the energy independence.
Oh, no, but that would require regulation and government spending on infrastructure, and we can't have that.
I mean, an energy carbon tax. That would be the best thing.
Tax, right? We can really have that.
But why don't we tax bad shit that hurts us, like oil, instead of good things that, like work? Is that crazy? Is that a crazy idea? Pass.
Yeah.
All right. Heather, which candidate for president will have the most aggressive anti-party poverty agenda?
That's a very good question. So I think that Secretary Clinton actually gets a bum rap on issues like this. I don't think that she is necessarily the most progressive when it comes to challenging corporate power, but I think when it comes to, I mean, her first job was at the Children's Defense Fund, right? When it comes to these issues of poverty, kitchen table economic issues, I think she's got a crusader's heart on this. I actually do.
Well, I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't know about Crusader's heart, but yes, I agree. I don't worry about her on domestic issues with the left. I worry about her being too right on foreign policy. That's where I worry, is that she's a kind of a hawk. And I would smattering of cutting green laws. Ion, what is the status of campus debate on Islamism? You were disinvited. You were supposed to speak at Brandeis, right?
I was supposed to speak at Brandeis. And
I was disinvited this year, too. Look at that. We have that in common. We're the, yeah.
You
Have
were
been
disinvited,
too?
Charles, yeah.
Oh, we've all been disinvited.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
In fact, there's
Mike, have
now-
you been disinvited?
From America as a black guy. I'm boat came, picked us up, worked for a few hundred years there. Like,
All right, you always have the top.
I'm the opposite. I just got asked to be a commencement speaker. There's hope for anybody.
You are so funny because you started out as the person that nobody wanted to be.
I got thrown out every school I ever went to.
You're like Bill Clinton in the '90s. Like he was the awful guy who killed Vince Foster and had no job. And then as time goes by, he's like the old building of the old whore. He's respectable now.
I know. I'm totally right. Nobody ever gets mad at anything I say.
You stick around long enough and you're respectable.
You become an insider instead of an outsider.
That's right. I'm sorry.
I think that we should be worried about what's going on in campuses, and not all campuses, but students need to go to college to learn how to think, what to think. If we don't give them a chance.
Way to say it.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you go to did you ever get there, or did that stick? Because I shamed them into actually rescinding the ban and actually letting these people.
I think Brandeis has been kind of finished. It's a campus culture. It's this whole thing about protecting minorities against what? Against learning how to think, minority students? Don't you trust minority students with...
It's so
It's so patriarchal.
It's so patronizing.
It's patronizing, and I'm more worried about that really than about... and I'm also worried about radicalism on campuses. But I think if students learn how to think, they'll see for themselves the difference between the ideology of Sharia versus the ideology of liberalism. And they need to be able to differentiate that when they graduate. We need to have that chance.
What would you know about it?
What would I What would I know?
All right. Who was right about the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, Obama or Elizabeth Warren? Yes, the liberal fight between themselves got a little more. Obama said Elizabeth Warren was just another politician, and he called her Elizabeth. And then Sherrod Brown, the Democratic senator from Ohio, was like, "Hey, Obama, that's patronizing to use her first name." And Obama was like, "Hey, I'm not on the rag, you are." I made that last part up. He didn't say that, but it did get a paraphrase.
Does anybody understand this treaty?
No.
I'm in favor of free trade, but I'm going to figure it out. What's in it then? I'm sure you do read. No, I stopped after the first paragraph. I said, this is not.
It is very arcane.
But I haven't, one thing, there are a few things that almost all economists I know of, and the left and right agree, is free trade is good.
There's no such thing as free trade. Like, that's just a slogan. That's like saying the death tax is something.
Clean coal.
Right, exactly. Clean coal.
Trade is a win-win.
Trade is great. We're trading all the time. We're trading bars, you and I. It's great. It's just what matters is the rules and how you write them, and frankly, who gets to write the rules. And the problem has always been with our version of free trade that corporations and their lobbyists get to write the rules, and it's cost Americans out every single time. And it's not made life better in the manufacturing countries where they're, dying in sweatshops.
So why do you think Obama put forward?
So I actually think that there is a piece about this about China that is geopolitical, that is not about jobs and economics at home, but this is actually about showing our biggest competitor that we have relationships with these nations in this area. That's a big piece of it that I don't think we can sort of say and leave with, but I think that we can
Maybe we have to make this bargain to get the climate deal. Presidents do things behind closed doors we don't know. And sometimes people are they do.
Trade means something else in my world.
Right. So does water. So John, how do you explain our reception of celebrity?
Oh God, I don't know. When I hitchhiked across the country and everybody picked me up, no one answered that. No one said to me that even if they knew who I were, and it was so amazing. Nobody wanted to talk about money. That shows the people have a whole different set of questions. The media always asks me about guests from the show. People I run into ask me about people, or they talk about their lives. I was out of what's more interesting if they have one. Right. I wanted to hear what they had to say. So it was amazing to me. Even if they knew, nobody said what's happening. In real life, in New York or LA, they do. Actually, people ask me what Bill Barnes was, what do you say? I say, basically, I tell them the same thing that we said to each other at the first show. When I thought you were an asshole, I thought I worked. I think that you are something an asshole. It was just one of the first show. Yeah,
Does George Stephanopoulos' donation to the Clinton Foundation compromise?
In a faraway galaxy lies a sun orbited by 3 planets, the Garal system, a place inhabited by humans and races born of humans, humans, beasts, and castes. For 500 years, there was war among the 4 races, a seemingly never-ending conflict. The era of peace and prosperity that lasted 100 years. But the peace was shattered by the arrival of the Sega. One crisis leads to another. Destruction now threatens to engulf the whole system. Maiden, are you alright? Did you see something on this again?
Another seed invasion. They come yet once again.
Then you must put on
Wasn't Rapper's Delight in 1971? That's the first rap. I thought it was Carla Paula. That was down. Yeah, Graham. That was fast. Great job, Mike.
You've got an incoming assignment from Guardian's headquarters.
You don't say. What's the assignment?
It started way before.
You've been assigned to instruct a new graduate. Head back to the Guardian's car.
Social media, I saw gang members saying, we're going to be about peace. We aren't warring with each other anymore. They didn't say anything about killing cops. They seemed like it was the first time in my young life that I saw gang members say, since 1992, say we're going to invoke our own peace treaty. What government should have done is what we do is we go to foreign land, get all the blue rebels, sit them down together, and say, let's fix this thing from the ground up. And I think we need to start engaging hip-hop and young people. And I think we need to change.
You get the last word, Killer.
I love you, brother.
And Killer Mike is because you killed the mic. Not because you killed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, pal. Overtime, overseas. Jane, does the U.S. do more harm or good with its drone policy?
The use of domestic drones is doing a lot of harm, by the way.
Domestic? I don't think that's what the question is.
I know, but let me go to both parts.
We're not really killing people with the
Well, that's a possibility. I think it's really out of control, and we're going to shred our Fourth Amendment. You heard it here. The use of drones internationally is a mixed bag, and we should reduce the use of drones. And our foreign policy should be much more about economic trade and aid and helping educate people all over the world so they have opportunities.
On balance, I was a supporter of the drone program. I believe today it is doing more harm than good overseas. The reason is because it's the sole tool, basically, of our war on terrorism. When we take out Al-Qaeda safe houses, we wind up taking out the spouses and the children. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of people have been killed over the years in places like Yemen and Somalia and Pakistan. And we generate this resentment from these populations for that. And we also lose valuable intelligence, because instead of capturing these guys and getting information out of them to prevent a future attack, we wind up vaporizing them. We vaporize them and their entire community.
So you would agree with what I was just saying. It's because we're there.
No.
If we weren't there, should we be there?
It depends how we're there. America is an
empire.
indispensable. No, we don't have an empire.
What? We don't have an empire?
We don't have an empire.
We're America before the
Putin may be built, but we're not.
We have troops in like 150 different countries in the world. Are you crazy? We have like 760 bases around the world. We have 50,000 troops in Germany. I think we got Hitler by now.
It's by 2013 there was no single American tank in Europe. And by the way, if you're praising Obama's, peace record, because of this weak policy now, he had no choice but to bring American soldiers, a small detachment, 100 soldiers and 10 tanks, at the Russian border. First time in my living memory. American troops are facing Russian troops in Estonia and Latvia, because those small countries are NATO members. And by 2013, there were no American tanks in Europe at all.
Wake me when he takes Poland. Anyway, I mean, yes, we moved 100.
Are you making jokes about it?
Yes, obviously that was a joke.
Both suffered from. I hope not Poles.
It's a comedy show, Gary. We make jokes about everything. Okay, if I have to watch out, it's not about the Holocaust. You made it about the Holocaust.
But for Poles, it's tough.
For Poles, it's tough.
Millions of Poles have been killed by Russians.
Gary, shut up. This is a stupid thing to say. I'm sorry, I'm a big fan of yours. But to say that I was making a Holocaust joke when I said, wake me when Putin takes...
You make jokes about everything.
I do. But that was not a Holocaust joke, and I don't think I've ever made one. Now's a good time for a motherfucker.
To the end of the show there, when you talked about the Obama model versus the Bush model,
right?
4-year anniversary of us getting bin Laden. It's fantastic. And yet, after that, President Obama said, Al-Qaeda's on the run. Al-Qaeda's been decimated. Wow. Look at Yemen, look at Somalia, look at Nigeria, look at what's going on throughout the Middle East. Terrorism is not on the run.
But the whole
it
thing
hasn't been
started in
decimated.
2003 when we should never have gotten into
That
Iraq.
may or may not be. I'm simply saying, no. We're celebrating a SEAL team operation that took out bin Laden as though that is the strategy that can solve our problems around the world. That's the model.
And it didn't start in 2003. There were attacks on the coal, and there were attacks around the Middle East in the 90s, and we didn't see the signals. And it's not all our fault. That's right.
What I think what we were saying there is that the model of going after terrorism as a law enforcement and spy agency issue, as opposed to sending invading armies to Arab lands, is the model.
Let me say too.
And by the way, that is the model because Iraq didn't make us safer in any way. Every time we've stopped a terrorist attack, it's because they did some good police work.
We were able to get bin Laden for 2 reasons. One, captured a lot of bad guys and got information out of them in ways that made people like you uncomfortable. And second of all, we had a presence in the Middle East.
You're saying that like a fact, and it is hardly a fact.
I'm happy to debate it with you. And we had a presence in the Middle East that got us a lot of human intelligence. The cumulative effect with which allows us to do a lot of things like the bin Laden operation. It's not like we just send a team in and they go and knock the guy off and they get out.
We secured democracy for the Middle East after that night, 2003.
Of course we didn't do that. And I believe intelligence on Iraq. I did, and I was wrong. And going into Iraq was wrong. But we've done a lot of things right. Bin Laden was wrong.
Look at 3 countries. There's Iraq, where we went in big, and it's a mess. There's Syria, where we actually deliberately stayed out of it, starting in 2011. There's chemical weapons being used against Syrians. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead. More than 1 million are displaced. There's Libya, where we went in and got right out and left it open, and now it's completely being taken over by militant Islamists. So the idea that us just going into Iraq is a model for disaster is absurd. There are places where we haven't engaged at all that are on fire right now.
It didn't cost us American lives and trillions of dollars. There's always going to be places in the world that are on fire.
Yeah, but we're arguing 2 different things. I'm simply saying, what Joe is saying is, we went in and we got a mess. And I'm saying, we went in and there's a mess there. There are places we haven't touched, and there are even more of a mess.
But don't you think that the people in the Middle East have to have a war amongst themselves? Some of them want to live in the 21st century.
They are right now.
And some of them want to live in the 7th
Yeah, you know what?
They need to have that out.
They are having
Mayflower
let me tell you something. It is happening. Look what's happening in Yemen right now. All right, it's basically a Shiite-Sunni proxy war.
Sure.
You have the Saudis arming one side and the Iranians arming the other. Well, guess what? President Obama just signed this framework agreement with Iran that will give Iran a nuclear program. We can debate how quickly it'll lead to a nuclear bomb. Let me finish. But they got a nuclear program. The Saudis are already saying, all right, well, if the Iranians get one, we get one. And the Qataris are saying the same thing. And the Egyptians and the Turks aren't going to be far behind. So you want that Sunni Shiite civil war in the region? Fine. Guess what? It's about to be thrown in, a nuclear arms race is about to be thrown into the mix. When all these countries want to do Me Too.
That's a lot of leaps.
It's not a leap. They're saying that right now. The Saudis are saying
you leapt from Obama's Iran treaty to Iran has a nuclear weapon.
No.
And now Saudis and
I'm
Turkey.
leaping from Obama's announcement of his deal to what the Saudis and the Qataris are saying in response now. They're saying if you're going to legitimize Iran's nuclear program, we get one too.
But he's not legitimizing it.
How is he not? He's saying they can keep their nuclear program.
He's
program.
Yes,
not nuclear weapon.
Right. Nuclear program.
Right. And so the Saudis are saying, great, we get one too.
Okay, but a nuclear program is not nuclear weapon.
And it quickly, with a little bit of R&D, becomes a nuclear weapon.
It will much more quickly become one if we don't have the inspectors in there.
When the first time the United States president raised the issue about the Iranian nuclear program, it was Bill Clinton in 1995 asking Boris Yeltsin to stop supplying Iran with Russian nuclear technology. Yeltsin gave a very vague promise, and Clinton hadn't pushed it. 20 years ago, American president already knew about the potential problem, but again, we are
Congress tried to block that. We did try. and Clinton vetoed it, as I remember. But,
Bill?
and I think we passed it over his veto.
You said something that I'm shocked to believe I kind of agree with you on. Okay, I'm hallucinating here. But you said wouldn't it be great if we had inspectors in there to prevent Iran from getting its breakout nuclear weapons capability? I completely agree. The problem is the Iranians don't agree, right? The commander, hold on. The commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran has said you cannot inspect military facilities in Iran.
Yeah, that's to win his base. That's the Tea Party of Iran. That doesn't mean that's what the final deal is, and you know that.
You tell me what the deal is. The moment the U.S.
If you
came out,
let them make it, maybe they would.
The moment the U.S. came out, the P5+1 came out with its interim agreement. The foreign minister of Iran said that fact sheet is spin, it's not real. The supreme leader of Iran said sanctions will be removed right away, not the way President Obama is saying. There's like a Persian version of this document, and then there's an American version of this document.
And the deal isn't cut, and if there is no deal, the other 5 of the P5+1 are going to walk away from the sanctions and trade with Iran, and there will be an arms race in the Middle East. And the hope is that it will be a good enough deal, and we'll all stick together. And one of the other beneficiaries of a good enough deal, even though they don't see it that way yet, is Israel.
I would love a good deal. I do not think this is a good deal, and I think we could get a better deal. This deal was negotiated when Iran's economy was strangled, and oil was being traded at $100 a barrel. Today it's under $50 a barrel. They're under more economic pressure. We can negotiate it.
All right. I don't think so.
Yes, Jim.
Isn't hearing somebody who is so wrong about a war lecture you about what's going on now, like Kim Kardashian telling you how to be a wife? It's kind of like that. It's like I just know there's so many mistakes were made, and they were argued just like with so many points and facts and figures, and it was so wrong-headed that we will suffer for that for decades. Yeah. And how are you so? You all speak with such certainty, and if you were right, then we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now.
I could ask you the same question I asked Professor Stiglitz out there. I mean, $60 billion was the estimate from Rumsfeld and George Bush, and it's costing over $4 trillion. Yeah. What else can you be that wrong about? Where else can you be even close to that?
You can say we've won the war against Al Qaeda when we haven't.
Well,
is that really?
That's a big deal. It's a big deal. I don't know if it's comparable. It's a big deal.
Wow.
You know that it's not comparable.
It's so not comparable.
That's a big deal.
It's just what he said. It's not money. It's not lives. It's just the guy.
Actually, is lives.
No,
What's going on in Syria? They don't think this war is over. Hundreds of thousands of people slaughtered. Chemical weapons.
Just arguing the red team. It's not really. This is your team. This is what's wrong with America. Nobody ever argues the team. This is my team. So I have the red flag behind me. So I argue the red position.
I'm the first to admit, because I saw it firsthand, that our country and the Bush administration made huge mistakes. Huge in the Gulf War. I mean, huge. So, and I was advocating for things, and others who were working with me were advocating for things that frustratingly our government didn't do to fix things, all right? We finally did turn things around gradually, but to suggest that this is just some partisan talking point is a little absurd.
But to suggest that it's equally a mistake to send thousands of people to their death, cost trillions of dollars, with a president prematurely saying that this one terrorist group is on the run, and they're
simply saying
it's just absurd. It's absurd, and you know that it's absurd.
Jane's not on the red team, so.
I take your, well.
A little bit.
I'm trying to get these things, trying to help get these things right. I think it's a dangerous world. I agree with what Gary said about Putin. I think if people don't stand up to Putin, what lesson are we not learning? We have to stand up to Putin, and we have to figure out a way to help.
Sanctions.
With massive
as opposed to what? Bombing
arming Ukrainian troops. What about giving lethal weapons to the Ukrainian army?
It's not clear that won't cause more harm.
Congress and Senate almost unanimously supported you know, almost all Democrats, you know, and Republicans support arming Ukraine. By the way, in 1994, under pressure from Bill Clinton, Ukraine has been dissolved. Ukraine had the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world, bigger than China, France, and UK combined. US demanded this arsenal to be dismantled. Ukraine gave it up for the guarantees of its territorial integrity. It's a signature of US president and, by the way, UK prime minister. I mean, you have to stand by your signature.
But would it be better if all former Soviet republics had nuclear weapons in them?
No. It was a good idea that they did it, but there were guarantees in exchange for removing them back to Russia.
I take your point seriously. Why can't anybody here talk with certainty about what just happened in the Middle East? Well, I don't think there are any. I think there are the least bad options in a lot of these places. There are no good options, and figuring out a way forward is important. But this is a point that where maybe we disagree, Bill. I think withdrawing from all this and letting them all fight it out and seeing where it ends up is not something we should do. I think America's responsibility. No, I don't agree with that. They want to fight it out with each other, but we should get in the middle so they have a common enemy. Here would be my comment. I think we should. I mean, we are not the indispensable power. We're the indispensable partner in the world. We have wealth. We have history.
Maybe we should stop thinking of ourselves as so fucking indispensable. You know what? Maybe we're not that indispensable.
I think American leadership matters. I don't think we should pat ourselves on the back. I don't think our history is that beautiful.
We're always the most exceptional.
I don't think we should withdraw. I think we
live without us. Maybe they can.
Structure better.
Maybe they can live without us.
Millions of people are willing to enter America. Why?
What's that?
Yeah.
Why millions, tens of millions of people in the world are trying to enter the United States?
I'm not saying other countries aren't bigger shitholes. I'm saying, why do we have to go there?
I think our influence would be a lot greater if we actually fixed America more.
Right.
And if we took that money
that was my original
in our
question. Opportunity cost. What if we took that $4 trillion and just the infrastructure? Our country is crumbling.
Do you believe it would go to infrastructure stock markets?
Well, we have a choice. We have a choice.
Yeah,
our political system hasn't been working the right way, and that's partly because of the Republicans.
Really? You know what's interesting, Joe? That it's the Democratic White House that feels so strongly about maintaining a federal guarantee for our big investment banks. And so if they ever implode again, the taxpayers have to bail them out. And I am for completely untangling that guarantee, and a lot of Republicans are.
I agree with you on that. I mean, that was a big mistake, the way we bailed out the banks. We had to save the banks, but we didn't have to save the bankers, the shareholders, and the bondholders.
So who's holding that all together today? Hold on. It's not Republicans in the White House who are holding all that together today. They are investment banking lobbyists that are very close to this administration that are making sure that guarantee stays in place.
But because of the Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United.
It's a no-brainer.
Is a no-brainer. And let's be honest, when Obama was trying to get the economy back on its feet, he begged the Republican Congress to spend some money on infrastructure. He said, look, we have millions of people out of work. They could fix this bridge. It's an easy fix.
He had control of the Congress in the first year of administration.
No, he did.
He did. He had majorities in the House and the Senate. And he got a stimulus, $1 trillion stimulus passed.
Right.
He got Dodd-Frank passed, which has a too big to fail guarantee built in to protect the investment banks. He got Obamacare passed. He got a bunch of things passed. So why didn't he push exactly what you're saying?
Well, he was working on those first. You're correct. And a lot of people said he should work on the economy first. And he said, you know what, America's
waiting. It's infrastructure.
What's it?
It's infrastructure, you know. The last construction of the East River in New York was in 1909.
Right. We're agreeing.
Shocking.
I think we all agree. Yes. On that.
And if people go across that bridge and they die, it'll be a Holocaust. Oh, I didn't mean it that way. Okay, so my point is, yes, a lot of people said he should work on the economy first. And I think what he was saying is our healthcare system is the economy. And it is. Because we have been, that was, everybody agreed before he did healthcare. Everybody agreed that this is the thing that's going to break the budget. Remember where the curve was going? Now we have Obamacare and it's bended the curve. And we're not going to go broke because that. But I never brought that argument. I don't know about what you think about this, Professor. I never brought that argument that by doing healthcare, he wasn't doing the economy. By doing healthcare, he was doing the economy.
But there's more people on food stamps than there were when Obama came to power. There are more people dropping out of the labor force.
That was because
when he came into power.
There was 30 years of deregulation, and it was bipartisan, but there were 30 years of mistaken policies that began under Reagan but got worse and worse and worse. And the result of that is, in 2008, we had a...
And just for the audience, just to be very clear, it was also Bill Clinton and Barack Obama.
Right.
Just it only applied when you mentioned Reagan. I just want to make sure they know that Clinton
and the economy went into the deepest downturn that we've had in 80 years, and we pulled back now, but it wasn't done as well as it could have been if we had the right investment. But it would have been a lot, I think he had hoped that if the economy didn't turn around, and when it came to 2011, we would have another dose. I thought that was a political misjudgment. In 2011, he no longer controlled Congress. He couldn't get the second dose that the economy needed of stimulus, and that's why we've had a lingering recovery with 91% of the benefits going to the upper 1%.